So this is in relation to the Events Eco funding, and there were a few questions that come out of that, and Nigel will work us through those.
So just up on the screen, I'm just going to go through and answer a couple of questions. So one talked about, one of the questions was around what makes up a major event. So the definition I've put up on the screen, but just a bit of a background to that. In 2017 is when there was a split and Christchurch NZ was established. In terms of, as part of that, there was an event policy framework that was developed that talked about major events, which was for Christchurch NZ to deliver, and then there was community implementation plan, which was the Christchurch City Council team to deliver. As part of that event development framework, this was the definition for a major event that was in there. So obviously it talks about in terms of three things that are required for a major event. Over and above that, when you start talking about the economic benefit threshold, that's currently defined as 6,000 bed nights, and that's moving to 8,000 bed nights in 2026. Also, part of that is that every event that applies to the major event must have 75% of its revenue secured from other sources other than the major event fund. So that could be through ticketing, central government funding, other regional partners, and the private sector. It's also expected that the event is held within the Christchurch City Council boundaries, and every event must be open to the public to attend, must be inclusive, and must be accessible. Obviously, when the group goes through and assesses those, they're also taking a portfolio view, so making sure that we have events spread across the year and we don't have the same type of events delivered all the time. So in theory, that is the definition of a major event that's currently used, and what's not a major event is defined as a community event, unless it's a mega event. Cool. So to continue,
we'll get to the end. You get to the end, and then we'll ask a question.
Yep, getting there. I'm trying to go through. So that was the definition part. The second part was intended to clarify what was the City Identity Fund. So I've just put the definition straight up on the board there. And what we were working through was when there are a number of events that are no longer defined as the criteria within that major event, but they're too large for some of the funding that we may have available at council through the Events and Festivals Fund, we have a gap with events that maybe city identity events, but council funding is too little to make it happen, and they're no longer defined as a major event. To keep going through in terms of the question the other day was in terms of how much funding is available for major events. When it was split in 2017, I think there's $1 million on the budget. Half remained with the Christchurch City Council to deliver the Events and Festivals Fund, so that's the 520,000 we have. The other half went over to Christchurch NZ, plus there's a $600,000 amount within the Capital Endowment Fund. So currently there's about $1.1 million that goes to Christchurch NZ around events. When we get to the community events, which is also a question, what I've pulled up here in a table is the funds that council currently has to deliver events. We have a council bidding fund that's managed by staff, and there's a small definition of the types of events they deliver. Last year, with the additional funding, there was a council arts and culture fund that's no longer, or not included in the draft. There was a seating fund, a small sports fund, a council identity fund that I just spoke about that's not currently funded, and also you'll be familiar with the Events and Festivals Fund that's currently on budget that councillors decide on how that's distributed to events on an annual basis. The other question that was asked was what events does council deliver? So the council events team or community events team deliver Te Rama Mai, Kids Fest, Winter Fireworks, the Go Live Festival, New Year's Eve celebration, Summer Theatre, Kite Day, Outdoor Movies, Sparks, Summer Sundays and Anzac Day. And in total that's about $1 million of cost to deliver those events. Plus, in terms of, on that slide, there's about $670,000 of funding that goes out to community events to be delivered. Happy to provide examples of the types of events if that's required, or to stop there and take questions.
Okie dokie. Victoria, then Sarah.
Just dialing right back to the beginning, did you say the major events that are run by CNZ have to have 75% external funding?
Yes, that's the criteria that's used.
Okay, thanks. And then you've just run through the events that the council deliver. I haven't seen it on the slide or the presentation. You've just rattled it off. Is that information available somewhere for us for clarity, please?
Yes, it's an Excel spreadsheet I can send through, which has the clarity of the types of events that come from each of those funds and the types of events that we deliver. I can send that through.
Yeah, it should be in here.
I can
I
circulate
haven't
it.
seen it, but I'd like to see that, please. Thanks. Oh, okay.
Okay, Sarah?
Thanks for that. I think one of the key pieces of information that's not on the slide, it might be in the Excel spreadsheet I haven't had a chance to look at yet, is what the old budget was, so the comparison with what's on budget now and what we did have. So, for example, the Arts and Culture Fund is not currently on budget. What was that fund? If that makes sense, how much did it used to have?
It previously was not a fund in terms of there was $50,000 that was assigned this year as part of the additional money, but I can put that into a summary to circulate as well, because that's pretty clear as well. It was one of the earlier presentations that we made, but I can circulate that.
So like the identity fund,
Yep.
how much was on budget?
Yes.
And maybe
what's the cut
clarify
been?
when they were on, because
Yeah,
some,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. If there was
when
just
they
a
were on
brief
and how
thing
much,
and
yeah.
just a little bit of
Yep.
that sort of background. Thanks.
Okay, Celeste?
Thanks, Nigel. In terms of the City Identity Fund, if that was set up, because it's not currently funded, if that was to be set up as its own fund, because it does fill a middle ground between, the big events, the
Sorry,
mid-sized ones.
Celeste, which one are you talking? I didn't hear. Which one?
It's City Identity. Anyway, what would you say that quantum would be? Like, do you have any numbers around? Because it might not be a case that we go for some of the big events, but we choose to support something like this.
Yeah, so in the original presentation that was made by the event ecosystem, that fund was around $400,000 for that fund. Of course, in terms of, we'll work through with whatever that looks like.
Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm just page 9 with events ecosystem funding. What is the city identity fund, etc.? And if you look at the events that are on it, there's no. I mean, Cup and Show Week was a really big identity for the city. It was linked in with other like Ashburton, etc. So there were other links within the region, and it seems it's kind of vanished. Where's that gone?
Sorry, page 9 of
Of the presentation we've got. So go back.
One above that.
Yeah, so there. So on the right-hand side, you've got some things that are including production support to ensure collaborative delivery. Examples may include da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, and I haven't provided an exhaustive list of everything that has been in
Okay.
a major event fund before, but if you want that, I can provide that as well. But that
Well,
would,
Yeah, because is there a strategy how there should be for a city if you've got a identity fund? What is our identity? And what these are the events that are going to reach this crescendo, if you like, or whatever you want. So yeah, I think we need to see that.
yeah,
What
just
the
to,
strategy behind it and what the thinking is, and the journey into the vision.
yeah, point taken. There is no strategy that identifies particularly what's a city identity fund and how that would be linked together.
And obviously that'll be collaboration delivered between yourselves and CNZ and but yeah.
And venues such as Tahi has to work our way through that.
Well, thank you.
If it was.
Thank you. Yanni?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have an event strategy. I'm pretty sure we signed off on one.
It's within the event strategy, you have a city identity. This is this is
So like the
part of it,
implementation
but separate
plan.
of it. So I'm just asking.
Do you mean like the implementation plan of the event strategy? Is that?
Well, no.
I think,
I know
Nigel,
exactly
you understand what Tim's asking
Yeah.
and can come back with
Okay.
it, doesn't
Okay,
yeah,
thank
that's
you.
right.
So I just,
Thanks.
but so one thing I wasn't quite sure on, like you take the buskers for example, probably not really a major event anymore. So is there a process by which, because it's really the quantum of money that we're putting to each event, I think that's the important thing, rather than what category they fit in, which ones are funded and which ones will not be funded.
It's got nothing to do with funding. It's got to do with vision and reaching what you need to achieve.
Yeah. So
So
that
if it's funding is part of it, one of the levers for the mechanics of reaching your vision.
right,
and
but
it's
it's whether,
strategy.
I guess what I'm just talking about in terms of this slide and this information is I'm trying to understand which events are going to be funded to what level and which ones are at risk of not being funded.
You need a vision to understand before you start funding.
Okay. And then the other thing was, in terms of this the funds, do you have, it's a bit like the question that someone asked the other day, like in terms of transport funding, but do you have a sense of which ones are oversubscribed, which ones are underspent, which ones, like say the small sports, for example, if we put more in there, could we attract more of those events?
The Events Eco Fund is X number of dollars, isn't it? We'll say it's 1.5 million for ease of working out in my head. Is 500 grand to us, Nigel? Is 500 grand to VO, which is Carolyn, and it's 500 grand to Christchurch NZ, which is Lauren. Is that correct, Nigel? Is that how it works?
I think in terms of, if you're asking what makes up the events ecosystem currently, in terms of there's an amount of money that council has provided to Christchurch NZ, plus in terms of what's part of the community events that I've just talked through, and that's what allows us to deliver what we deliver.
Yeah.
In terms of
And I feel that we shouldn't be. It's all very well we want to stick our oar into it. You, the guys that know what's coming in, you know what events and things and festivals and things that are on. I don't want us telling you what to do because you do a very good job doing it.
I think at the moment what Nigel's covering off is what is in the draft LTP. So in the draft LTP, there's 1.1 million that goes to Christchurch NZ, is that correct? And there's another 1.6 that's with council, that's a mix of actually staff that are producing events and grants funding, which has been outlined. So that is on budget at the moment. So the discussion then about the additional funding, which is the 1.5, would be over and above this, and that's where you decide where you want to put it.
Yes.
Is that? I'm just trying to summarise what you've said.
That's correct. I'm to go through, and then just one more point. What I was trying to say at the start was when Christchurch NZ developed the major events framework, and it came to council and was endorsed by council in 2021. That's what provides the guidance for them to go away and deliver the major event strategy for the city. Likewise, the community events implementation plan provides the guidance for the community events team to provide the community events for the city.
So this funding that we're talking about is over and above what Mary just said. That's already there. So when people are running around saying, "Oh, everything's been cut," that isn't correct. You had some anyway.
That's true.
Thank you. Andre.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the draft long-term plan, so what I've just sent out is the information we got sent out from Nigel a couple of months ago. So in short, the City Identity Fund, what was being proposed in that was not established, so that would cover events like the Santa Parade, like Christmas in the Park, and that would provide a reliable source of funding for those key events. But what was being proposed is that those type of events would have to apply through the Events and Festival Fund, which is that $520,000 one, which is oversubscribed by about 500%. So those types of events would have to apply through that, and obviously there wouldn't be enough funding to go around. That's what's being proposed as part of the draft long-term plan. So what I've sent you out will sort of explain that. But yeah, the options here going forward are what funds go to, what amounts go to which type of funds and what can they cover. And yeah, there's obviously some confusion over that, and fair enough, there's a lot of different pots here. But if you have a look through that information, that should help answer some of the questions. But in short, if you keep things like the Events Festival Fund as it is, which has been frozen for a number of years and it's oversubscribed by several 100%, and then those other big events have to apply through that, there would never be enough money to go around, in short. Yeah. And it would be a cut on what's been done previously. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a cut, though, and what you proposed is no longer a cut. Yeah.
Any more, Celeste?
This is a question for Andre. No. I guess is an option that we can put forward just to set up a city identity fund that would be to whatever quantum that would cover off those events like the Santa Parade to fund them appropriately. Would that be an option?
I think in terms of just to be really clear, in terms of go through, there was a bid made by the event ecosystem. You've received staff advice in terms of considering the entire, in terms of submission to the LTP, and to go through which you've received it and read to go through. If councillors decide to do something different, then that would be your decision, but you received staff advice already.
Yep, yeah, that's right, that's correct. Anyone else? Yeah, Pauline? Yeah.
Just to be clear, things like the Santa Parade, etc., would all apply to this contestable fund.
So can I just try and clarify? So at the moment on budget, there is about $2.7 million,
Yep.
which is divided across the two agencies. The option that was put forward in the LTP was adding to that. It didn't necessarily say, and it didn't lock you down to what you funded from it. So if you wanted to add to it, you could decide now where you wanted that put and what type of activities, or you could add to it in the
And leave it
budget
for
and
staff.
come back. Either leave it to staff to decide, or
Yep.
add to it and get staff to come back with the criteria for the fund. But you could put it on budget if you wanted to.
Yeah, so rather than getting down to discussing
nitty-gritty,
specific events
But
now,
what's
we're
going to get
talking
funded? Yeah, you
about
could
the
put the
pot.
funding and request criteria to fund.
Thank you.
What I'm trying to get at is have trust in these guys. They know what they're doing. Stop us sticking our oar in with every little favourite tiddlywinks competition that's floating around the place, and let Nigel and his team get on with what they do best. Yanni, please. I've got your time.
Note that the implementation plan expired for community events in 2023, and we've also got the 2017 events framework, which, you know, is quite different to what we're getting. So I just wondered, is there a strategy or policy process underway to look at what we're doing next?
Yes, there's two parts. So the major event strategy was refreshed and endorsed by council in 2021. The community events implementation meeting, you've had one briefing, and they've got that ready to come to council with an updated refresh of what that looks like.
Thank you. Tyler, please.
Kia ora, Nigel. I just have a question around permits, consents of the sort. And I'm wondering, you don't have to bring it to me now, obviously, but what would be really beneficial is if we saw the income from, for example, using staff time for traffic management plans, permits and consents, because there may be some income from that, right? TMPs and things of the sort.
There is some income from events, but some of that is covered by the other parts of council that are responsible for delivering that part. So if you talk traffic management plans, then some of the cost sits within the traffic team that when they go through and do that. So it doesn't always come through the community events team to deliver that.
Can we be clear? It's cost recovery. It's not income that you can actually use that revenue to fund something else.
That was my
Because
question,
they are
yeah,
just
cool.
recovering their costs. They're not making profit on that
Nothing.
revenue.
Yep. And in a normal, just to gain some context, in a normal application, would they take that into account in their budgeting in regards to asking for funds?
Yes, so
Waste management plans, traffic management plans, etc.
every group, and you'll see this when we come with the Events and Fest Fund, every group that applies in terms of they've got to make sure they provide a budget and work their way through that, and they include all the costs that are delivered and how they're going to pay for it. Council does not fund all the events in terms of that's why there's a requirement about making sure that it's going to be available to the public to deliver, and that council's costs in terms of are only part of what it costs to deliver that event.
Okay.
One of Nigel's problems is, give an example, is Anzac Day is all over the place. The traffic management for those of Ngākaroa, it's all over the place, is a lot of the cost, isn't it? It's hell of a-
It is a lot of the cost, and one of the other things that the team does do, every time they get an event permit, we work with them to try and make it as seamless as possible. So if we can avoid traffic management plans or consent plans for marquees that are larger than they need to be, then we work through and provide all that advice and those examples to try and make events far simpler for people to deliver.
Okay.
and let them do what they want to do rather than blow it on a whole lot of other stuff. We've got two more questions. We've got Tim and then Celeste, and we'll move on. Thank you.
Just as a heads up, over a decade, probably a decade and a half ago, a trust was set up to do traffic management to try and ease the burden on events. And in the end, if I'm correct, it fell over in the end because there was so much demand for it. So in the end, they sold all the equipment and put the money back to council. It was just too much for one organisation. So.
Celeste?
Final question is, with the Events and Festivals Fund, has there been any request to increase that fund?
Not by staff, no.
So my understanding is, from what Andre said, is that it's really under pressure. So I'm just interested as to why that hasn't been included in terms of the overall request. So you've got the ecosystem stuff, but the city identity fund, I guess if that was set up, it would take some of the pressure off, I assume.
Can I be clear that in the submissions, I don't think the submitters were as precise as saying which fund they wanted. The submissions were saying they wanted funding for events, and they didn't necessarily always name the event, the fund it comes out of, because that's just our procedural
That's
aspect.
what we do.
I think the submissions that I read reference the fact that when people are struggling with cost of living, they're more likely to go to free events, which typically are the ones under the events festivals. Hence, I was wondering why we hadn't looked increasing the budget for that.
Well, what we've done and what I try to articulate through that events ecosystem and those different pots up there is there's a range of different types of events that are delivered, whether it's through arts and culture, sport, etc., and that's what we've tried to cover with these different pots. When we talk about the events ecosystem, it goes from community events right through to major events. So in terms of we're trying to find the best mix of events that are delivered for the city.
Okay, thank you. That's okay, Tim.
Just because irrelevant why or how, a few things from council events have been shifted over to the identity fund, and that they've morphed or whatever to change. But that money, that budget had shifted, so therefore there's less on the council side, events side of things. Just to be clear, it's all, nothing's been thrown away, it's all being used, but it's just shifted from one place to another. So it's kind of gone like that, or whatever, any way you want to explain it.
Yes, we're doing. Yes.
Thank you.
But that's important to understand, because one group now has less money to try and do the same thing, and another group's got money to hopefully do more and better, whatever, but the money's shifted.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. I really want to move this on. Andre, you're the last one on this segment.
Yeah, just picking up on the oversubscribed point. So what we got sent out is that the Events Festival Fund, the one down the bottom, so last year applications totaled 1.7 million against 286,000 available to allocate. So yeah, heavily oversubscribed. You start throwing things like Santa Parade in the mix to apply for that. Say good luck. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we've got Jonathan.